Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the very first lesson on the very first day of school here in IB History 2. Now, before we actually jump into this, I wanted to go ahead and give you some background information. This is going to make this video a little bit longer, but you need to know what you're looking at before you proceed so that you can get used to the format of the screens and the format of the videos as well. So, first of all, I want you to notice up here in the upper left-hand corner these two numbers here, 0.0. And what this means is that this is the 0 unit, because we're all going to be doing this unit is nothing but the 0 unit or the introductory unit. And this is the 0 lesson or the introduction lesson. And so the introduction lesson is entitled, What is IB History 2? And what we're going to talk about is what exactly is your course specifically to this year of IB History 2. Secondly, I also want you to, and let's just get rid of this right here. Secondly, I want you also to notice that there is the different colors here that you see. They're the same exact color, just so that you'll know if you lean over and see someone else's is a different color, that just means they're on a different unit. Of course, that's not a problem right now because we're all starting at the same time. But these are color coded by unit. So once we get to the point where people are actually in different units, then you'll see the different colors and the different themes. But just recognize that all of them are going to be the same universal color. Now, for every single lesson that you do in here, you're always going to have this particular slide or screen in a different color, but it's always going to have this statement. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to, and these are your lesson objectives. So by the end of this particular lesson, you should be able to explain the four main components of the IB History course, describe the curriculum from last year of IB History, describe the curriculum for the senior year of IB History. You should be able to explain how the Independence Unit will work, as well as the basics of Paper 1 for the IB History course. So at the end of this, all of these things you should be able to understand and replicate. Okay, so here we are on the next slide, and just to draw your attention that we still have the same color theme going and the same number, and notice the title of this slide is course specifics. And so now a lot of the content that's on this particular slide, most of you probably already know. But before we jump into that, one more thing I want to draw your attention to. As you're taking your notes, we want to make sure that you are paying attention to anything that is in blue. And the reason being is because those are things that are highly essential. You definitely want to make sure that you are writing this term down and addressing this term in your notes, because if you have these terms down in your notes for each one of these slides, you're going to be good. Okay, so if you don't get anything else out of them, just make sure you make sure you do the blue, because that is the very essence of the particular slide. All right. So, on to the content. So, this is just a review for all of you. Just a reminder that IB History is a 2-year world history course, and in that course it's taught over the 11th and 12th grade. You are currently now enrolled in the second half of the history course. Just to remind yourselves, Paper 1 is a requirement for all of you, regardless if you're taking the class HL or SL. Everyone takes this. Paper 2 is also required of every single one of you, regardless if you're HL or SL. The historical investigation is also required of every single one of you, regardless if you're HL or SL. So you must do that. That is not something you can get out of doing. And then Paper 3 is only for those of you that are going to be taking the course at HL level. Now, that's probably going to be the vast majority of you, because IB History is generally the largest HL test given here at Y High, so that's pretty much the norm. So most of you will probably be doing HL. Now, these numbers over here, these are the number of hours that the IB prescribes that we teach in those content areas. So we should have like 40 hours of prescribed content, 90 hours of world history content, etc., etc., etc. Now, the Paper 1 prescribed subject, the IB gives schools 5 prescribed subjects. The school must choose one, and here at Y High, we chose rights and protests. It's very fitting with our school's focus of social justice, equity, and inclusion. And so in the rights and protests prescribed subject, you have 2 case studies that we must study. And we will study both the civil rights movement in the United States and the apartheid movement in South Africa. Paper 2 topics all of you have actually already completed one of these paper 2 topics. Last year in 11th grade, we all completed authoritarian states. Remember, all of us did Adolf Hitler as a case study, and then you got to choose either Mao, Castro, or Nasser to compare and contrast with Adolf Hitler. This year, you're going to do the exact same type of activity. You're going to have an independence movement that we're going to study in the second half of the first semester. And we're going to take a case study, independence movement, and study it together as a whole. And then you guys will choose another independence movement to compare and to research on your own, and then compare and contrast to the case study that we do. Now, diving a little bit deeper, if you'll take a look at this slide, this is just a recap of last year in 11th grade. So last year in 11th grade in semester 1, and this is just, by the way, just the IB content, so this is not taking into consideration like the first unit that we did with all the historical thinking skills. So in the first semester, the IB content that you covered was authoritarian states, where all of us did Adolf Hitler as a case study, both in Henson's class and in mine. And then you all got to choose which one of these 3 individuals, Nasser, Castro, or Mao, which one of those individuals you wanted to compare and contrast your authoritarian leader to. And then most of us did not get this far. The historical investigation, those of you that have Ms. Henson, you guys did an amazing job, and I salute all of you. And unfortunately, my kids did not get the benefit of having Ms. Henson last year, so my kids did not finish the historical investigation. So as a result of that, we will be moving the historical investigation to the 12th grade, and I'll explain more about that in just a second. But that was the second unit in the first semester, was a historical investigation, so at least Henson's class did finish that. In second semester, both Henson and I did actually get back on track, and so both of us completed Middle East History Part 1 and Middle East History Part 2. So this is what all of you currently listening have completed at this point. So now jumping over here to 12th grade, this is where I was saying that this year in first semester, the very first thing that we are all going to do is the historical investigation. That is the very first thing. Yes, even those of you that had Miss Henson last year, you will have the opportunity to redo your HI. You can either completely do another one, or you can, if you wish, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to just tweak the one that you have now, that will be perfectly fine. But I will give you more information on that once we get to that unit. We have to get through Unit 0 first, but just so you know, my kids have to complete their HI. And so even though you've completed yours, you can redo it along with us, or refine the one that you have, because you do need to turn it in at this time, and it will be graded again for this first semester. You may have gotten a grade for it in Ms. Henson's class second semester, but this time it's going to be your final draft, if that makes any sense. And then the second half of first semester, we're actually going to do independence movements. And since this is paper 2, and if you remember last year in paper 2, you had authoritarian states, you did a case study. And so we're going to do the same thing. This year, we are going to study Zimbabwe as a case study. So all of us are going to study Zimbabwe together, about the independence movement of Zimbabwe. And then, just like last year, you will be able to choose which other independence movement you would like to study more in depth and compare it to Zimbabwe. And this time you have 4 choices: Vietnam, India, Pakistan, Cuba, and Ireland. And for those of you that are questioning about India, Pakistan, the reason why there's 2 there is that, India and Pakistan, they both became independent at the same time from the British Empire. And so that one huge landmass that the British controlled broke up into 2 countries at the same time. So that's why it's kind of a 2 for 1 if you look at it that way. And then in the second semester of this year, we will actually do both of our paper 1 topics. And the first one we'll start off with is apartheid in South Africa. And then at the very end of your senior year, we will conclude with dealing with civil rights in the United States. So look forward to that. And then, of course, we'll follow. We'll have plenty of time after that, to do any kind of review. So there will be review as well. So do not think that there's not any going to be a review. So there will always be some type of review going on. In terms of paper one, just so you know, paper one is kind of like a DBQ. And a DBQ, if you've never heard of that term, is a document-based question. And so you're going to be given a series of documents, and they're going to ask you a series of questions about those documents regarding, do you understand the basics of the documents? You're going to have to compare and contrast two of the documents. You're going to have to OPCVL one of the documents, and then you're going to have to use all four of the documents to answer a short mini essay. And so that is what they mean when it's a document-based question. So there's four documents that you'll have to analyze. And we have to teach you both of these case studies because on the IB exam, you do not know which one you're going to get until you open the test booklet. So you might get an apartheid question or you might get a civil rights question, but I don't know and you don't know until the day you open the test booklet. So sorry, I can't help you with that. All right. So we have reached the very end, and again, if you just look back up here, it's where Unit 0, Lesson 0, and we just ended the lesson, What is IB History 2? So, again, this slide looks very familiar to the first slide, except it's slightly different. Our lesson has concluded. And so, there's a series of questions here. So we have just taken our lesson objectives and turned them into questions, and we're going to ask them to you here. Can you explain the four main components of the IB History course? Can you describe the curriculum from last year of IB History and the curriculum for the senior year? Can you explain how the independence movement will work? And can you explain the basics of paper 1 for IB History? If you can answer those questions, pat yourself on the back. You did an awesome job. Now, at this point, you have now finished 0.0. So now if there's any activity that's attached to this, you want to make sure you go ahead and do that. And then you can go ahead and proceed on to lesson 0.1 if it is uploaded for you. Always remember, you will notice when your lesson has completely ended because you will always see this stop sign down here to remind you that this is the end. All right. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful day.